Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. My name is Dylan Stone from Madera County Transportation Commission. I'm really grateful and everyone has joined us for this workshop this evening to go over our 2026 Regional Transportation Plan and Sustainable Community Strategy. Before we get started, there is something I want to go over for the workshop participants to let you know that there is the availability of a Spanish room for anyone that does speak Spanish and wants to utilize that. We have some instructions on the screen. There should be a global button somewhere on the Zoom app that can take you to interpretation services. And within that, you can choose between English or Spanish. And then you would need to mute the original audio if you do go into that room. So I just want to give anyone that wants to utilize that the opportunity. If there is any technical difficulty, we might be able to ask or raise our hand on this and we can help get that set up. There is a raise hand button, I believe, too, on our Zoom app. So I just want to take a minute to let anybody that wants to utilize that get set up, get situated.
Buenas tardes, bienvenidos al taller sobre el Plan Regional de Transporte 2026 y la Estrategia de Comunidades Sostenibles. Para las personas que deseen tener interpretación al español, van a encontrar en la parte inferior de su pantalla, en unos momentos más, un icono en forma de globo terráqueo. Por favor, hagan clic en este globo y les va a permitir encontrar las opciones entre el inglés y el español. Presionen en inglés o el español y van a tener la oportunidad de recibir los servicios al español. Pueden también opcionalmente apagar el sonido original para tener una traducción más nítida cuando escojan el canal al español. Gracias. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I also wanted to mention we are recording this workshop. It'll be posted and available for anyone that maybe wasn't able to make it tonight to view on our website later. Okay, and with that being said, let's move on about what we're going to speak about tonight. We're going to start off just basic who our agency is, what are these plans we're working on, the Regional Transportation Plan and Sustainable Community Strategy. We'll be calling those RTP SCS for short. We're also going to want a little feedback, some of the opinion of you who have joined us tonight on a few questions related to transportation as well as land use. Those both are very important for the plans we're working on, as we're going to discuss. So who is MCTC? MCTC is the Regional Transportation Agency and Metropolitan Planning Organization, and we are also the local transportation commission for Madera County. We work really closely with the city of Madera, the city of Chowchilla, Madera County, as well as Caltrans. Those are the big four agencies that deliver most of the transportation projects we see in our county. And it was also mentioned where the Transportation Commission, we administer Measure T program that you might have heard of here in Madera County as well. Our role is to foster intergovernmental coordination. We undertake comprehensive planning at a regional level with an emphasis on transportation issues. We provide a forum for citizen input into the planning process and provide technical services to member agencies. In all these activities, we work to develop a consensus amongst our members with regards to multi-jurisdictional transportation issues. So for the plan we're going to talk about tonight, for example, this is a county-wide plan. It includes both the cities and the rural areas in the county. So it's multi-jurisdictional. It covers our whole region. In the plan we're talking about, the Regional Transportation Plan, or RTP, it's one of the key responsibilities of our agency to develop this, as well as an improvement program, a transportation improvement program, which is required by the state It goes hand in hand with our regional transportation plan. And we have a memorandum of understanding with the state of California to deliver these plans for the Madera County region. So let's talk a little bit about the RTP in more detail. What is it exactly? It is a long-range strategic document. It outlines transportation needs, goals, proposed projects, and it typically covers a period longer than 20 years, 20 to 30 usually. The one we're working on now is about a 24-year plan. It aims to improve mobility, reduce congestion, enhance safety, and support sustainable economic growth by addressing infrastructure gaps and prioritizing transportation investments. Excuse me. So the RTP covers a wide variety of transportation projects, both big and small, from sidewalks to public transportation to our state highways or the freight rail system that goes through Madera County. It's comprehensive. It looks at, as I mentioned, a minimum of 20 years. And we update this plan regularly, every 4 years, because a lot can change in 4 years. Sometimes there are new laws. Sometimes there's new funding programs. Sometimes there's new environmental considerations. There's a lot we have to account for, and things can change fast. So we update this plan regularly. We also develop this plan in accordance with guidelines that are established by the state of California. And there are several required elements in this plan that we develop. We developed the sustainable community strategy, which we're going to talk more about later. The plan also has a policy element, action, and financial element as well. So just to talk a little bit more about some of those required elements, our policy element defines the strategic goals and principles guiding transportation decisions in our county. How are we going to grow? What are we going to need? What are important investments we need to consider with our scarce transportation dollars? The action element outlines a wide variety of specific projects or initiatives and programs that can help us achieve goals. The goals we have locally, as well as those we share with our state and federal partners. So there's quite a few of those. Our last plan had over 900 different projects of all different sorts. That's generally the nature of our plan, since we are talking about a comprehensive transportation plan through all of our communities. It also contains a financial element. This details the funding sources and the budget required to implement the proposed actions in the plan. The regional transportation plan must be fiscally constrained. What that means is we have to have a reasonable assumption that the funding will be there to deliver the projects in our plan. We can't just put any plan in there without a plan to fund them in the future. So let's talk about that fourth element, the SCS. In 2007, the California State Legislature passed Senate Bill 375 that required an SCS to be incorporated into the regional transportation plan. The SCS is a regional plan aimed at reducing greenhouse gas emissions by promoting land use and transportation policies that encourage more compact, walkable, and transit-oriented development. It integrates housing, transportation, and environmental planning to create more sustainable and resilient communities while enhancing the quality of life in Madera County and in reducing our environmental impact. So what specifically must the SCS show for Madera County? The California Air Resource Board in Sacramento is responsible for setting greenhouse gas emission target reductions for our region. Madera County must reduce greenhouse gas emissions per capita by 16% by the year 2035 as compared to 2005 levels, simply meaning that whatever amount of greenhouse gas pollution the average person created every day in the year 2005, by 2035, that has to be 16% less. So there's a lot of strategies that go into us developing the plan that can achieve this. So let's talk about how we develop our SCS. We collect an extensive amount of data. We want to start by looking at whatever is the latest and greatest data sources available to us so we can establish an accurate base here for our plan, the ground truth of what we can observe. We engage with important stakeholders like yourselves through the development process. Our plans are always better when people who live, work, or are a part of our communities contribute to them. We develop tools that let us analyze what impacts the region's growth will have, such as population growth, new housing, new employment. What are those impacts going to be on the way travel behaves in Madera County? We do extensive analysis on that for where people are going, how often, and what is the pollution impact. We create various scenarios to analyze this future growth impact and apply different growth strategies to each of them. The SCS requires that we develop many different scenarios that are distinct, and we can look at what really works the best as we analyze them and hopefully have an informed opinion on what our preferred scenario for the SCS will be. We have an array of technical tools that we use for this exercise, such as a land use model and a transportation model. We spend a lot of time refining these, making sure they are utilizing the best data, that we've programmed them with what the scenarios entail as far as growth patterns or specific strategies. And we also do a fair bit of analysis on each of those. As I mentioned, this plan, the SCS, ultimately will pick a preferred scenario. And that is essentially the plan that we go forward with and submit to our partners at the state and federal government. So this meeting is, as I mentioned, that stakeholder engagement, part of important feedback mechanism we use for this plan. And we do have some activities planned later tonight where you can give us some information about yourself, the way you travel, or some of your ideas or thoughts about how this county grows in the future. But before we get into that, I just wanted to stop here. If there's any questions about who we are or the plan we're working on. I don't have a view of any hands raised if there are, or if there's any questions in the chat.
No hands raised and no questions in the chat.
Okay, very good. Well, I mentioned there's some questions we wanted to ask the group tonight. So let's go right into that. We're going to use the Zoom feature to ask those questions. And I believe Selena is going to assist me with that.
They should be on the screen now.
Okay, I see some, yeah. NCTC workshop questions. Is everybody not seeing some? Is anybody not seeing some questions that have popped up through Zoom? If so, please let us know. And okay, so we wanted to know just some basic information about if you live in Madera County, or do you travel to or from maybe another county? Do you work in this county? So the question, let me make that a little bigger. Sorry. Do you live in Madera County and travel to a neighboring county for work? Okay, so we're getting a few responses there. And yeah, obviously you can read this and go about at your own pace, not a problem. Our next question, do you live in Madera County and travel to a destination within Madera County for your work? We've also asked if you can indicate what your primary route is for your daily commute, whether it's to work, school, something else that you just do very regularly as part of your transportation behavior. We're interested in knowing your general satisfaction with current road maintenance in Madera County. It's something we do hear comments from quite a bit when we're going all over the county. And do you experience any kind of reoccurring congestion during any of your commutes? And have you noticed any positive changes recently in traffic patterns or road conditions? Okay, I think I've seen some people voting, so it must be working, and we're registering results. We do appreciate that. That helps us get us an idea of the people that participate with us and maybe some of the things that are on their mind or things that we can consider as we work with our partners to develop this plan.
Are we ready to close it out, Dylan?
I think so. If it looks like everybody's finished voting, please do.
Okay, I'm ending the poll now.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So let's talk a little bit about some of those SCS scenarios that we mentioned a few slides ago. So an SCS scenario, as I mentioned, we're required to make this. It's part of the guidelines for how we develop this. We look at many different scenarios. It's a projected model or strategy that outlines different land use, transportation, and policy options to achieve the greenhouse gas reduction goal targets set for us by the state, and it reflects various approaches to regional growth and development. We'll ultimately examine 3 scenarios for this plan. We've considered a few more than that, though, but we are kind of waiting to see what some of the feedback is before we really pin down the ones we want to work with. A preferred scenario will ultimately be selected. That will be one that is intended to meet the state greenhouse gas reduction targets, and it would also apply for some of the federal pollution reporting we have to do for our RTP and SCS as well, as there are state and federal mandates for this plan. It has to be an ambitious yet achievable plan, able to show that we are making progress towards the goals that California Air Resource Board has set before us for developing sustainable communities. So I just want to talk about some of the things we've been working internally with as far as some concepts for scenarios. So let's jump right into those. The easiest one to wrap your head around is one that really doesn't change anything. It would be an existing plan, carrying forward what we've already developed, enacting that. This maintains the current transportation pattern of infrastructure investments. It would avoid significant change or disruption to land use, economic activity, or community preferences. It provides a baseline for measuring the impact of potential future changes or improvements. That's it's a common thing to look at for this type of planning exercise because it helps you visualize how much you potentially change versus carrying out what you already know versus developing a new strategy. We've also looked at a scenario that's centered around affordable housing, something that can promote easier access to housing by increasing the availability of affordable homes, especially near transit or employment centers, reducing housing cost burdens for low income or moderate income families. And it also can help alleviate traffic congestion and greenhouse gas emissions by enabling more people to live in walkable or transit-oriented communities. Additionally, we've looked at a scenario that is transit supportive development in nature. This can reduce traffic congestion by making public transit a more viable, convenient, and accessible option for travelers. It would promote sustainable growth by concentrating development around transit hubs or our transit corridors. And it can enhance mobility, increase access to affordable housing and job employment centers while fostering more walkable communities also. Another scenario we've looked at deals with the concept of resource conservation. A resource conservation scenario promotes sustainable land use by preserving natural resources, open spaces, and agricultural land. It's a reduction of urban sprawl, helps protect our natural ecosystems, can improve resiliency to climate change in doing so, and foster a more efficient use of water, energy, and other vital resources. A fifth scenario we've looked at, we titled the limited growth footprint scenario. This also can help control urban sprawl by focusing development within existing urban areas, preserving open space and agricultural land, can reduce infrastructure costs, enhance environmental protection, as well as promote more walkable or transit-oriented development in our communities. We've developed these and we're interested in your thoughts on them. If you think these can be successful for Madera County's growth as it pertains to the plan we're working on, or perhaps you have some other ideas, we're always open and willing to listen. So I mentioned earlier that there is a transportation questions we have. We also have a few questions about land use that we're interested in having your opinion on. In particular, housing growth. We mentioned that our plan is a long-range plan, looking out to almost 2050, in fact. So we're interested in what people think about that. It's not the usual thing people have on their mind every day, but we want to know if people have ideas about the way we grow as it pertains to housing. So with that, we've developed, oops, there we go. We have developed a mapping exercise people can engage with on their PC or their telephone, or I've also been going out to workshops or meetings or a few other functions as well with some big maps on poster board with stickers. We really want to get anyone's opinion that has one to give. Like I mentioned earlier, our plans are better when more people can contribute to them. But for this, if you're so inclined, we'd love for you to participate in the land use mapping tool that we've developed, where we can ask where you think certain types of housing would be best fit as we grow in the future. So if you open that map, it's going to give you 3 different options to make 2 selections. The first option is, where do you think multifamily housing is most needed in Madera County? That'll give you, we've preloaded a few areas within the county that our partners from the cities and the county have indicated are growth areas. You have some choices in there for your selecting where you think is the most important place as we grow for multifamily housing. If you scroll down further, you'll have to be asked the same question. What 2 locations do you think single family housing with small lots makes the most sense for how we grow? And then finally, the same question for single family medium to large lots. And this just highlights what some of those growth areas are. And it captures most of areas that have been in the local plans for our general plans. A lot of places that either are currently developing or perhaps have room for more development in the future. So as you saw, there is a QR code. We have a link also. I forgot to mention, we can put that in the chat. That link will take you to the same thing, but you could do it on a computer. And as I mentioned, I'm doing this live through a handful of locations for the next several weeks. Functions like this, workshops, or some tagging along on other functions, either through our agency or through our partners. And we're hoping we can get some good ideas for this and get people thinking about growth, the RTPSCS, how we grow and what's important to consider as we do in terms of needed transportation investment. So I would encourage you to share that if you're able to with anyone you know that might be interested. That'll help a lot. And with that, I want to turn it over to questions again. We have time to answer any questions about our plan and what we're working on and hoping to achieve with it.
Dylan, we do have a question in the chat. So the question is, do you plan on using aspects of all of the scenarios, or would you choose one and heavily rely on a single scenario?
That's a good question. I think the way we do these scenarios, we would be choosing one where that might be more of a focus than some of the other strategies, but it wouldn't necessarily eliminate all the strategies. We could have a strategy that, for example, might have a higher emphasis on public transportation. But to enact a strategy like that effectively, you should be thinking about affordable housing. You should be thinking about where that is going and who that is able to serve and how we can improve that through a scenario. So it might have a little bit of all of them, but some of them, depending on what is chosen, definitely feature one aspect as a real focal point. Does that help answer the question?
Thank you, Dylan. They said yes.
Okay. And if anyone has some questions about using the map or maybe any technical difficulties, definitely we're always available to reach out. We have our contact info here. We could help people that maybe are having a hard time with that.
We do have another question. What is the comment period timeline?
For the development, it's really this, I would say during this spring and summer, we want the things that are going to help us build what we have to work with as far as developing the plan. Once we get to a certain point after the summer, though, we're going to be needing to really apply ourselves towards analysis of what we've created for scenarios. So there's not going to be as much time within that frame to change a lot. That's why we're trying to get as much info as we can during the spring and summer here, or winter, spring, summer, before we get too heavily involved in the analysis that's required of us on the technical side. There's going to be a point where we'll be shooting ourselves in the foot if we change too much too late. And then as that goes on later in the fall, we are going to have more information about the scenarios we worked with, what impacts they had, and that'll be another opportunity for people to learn about those and maybe have some comments about which one they do think would fit for our preferred scenario. The preferred scenario would ultimately be something that would be chosen by the MCTC board through our recommendation as we develop. And then towards the conclusion of the plan, there will be a 55-day public comment period on the environmental document, as well as comment period on the RTP and SCS as well. That's expected later in the summer next year.
Thank you, Dylan.